calificas para ser legal. ¿Quieres saber? Solo llama al abogado Andrés Mejer.
If you have DACA, why should you file for advance parole? And what is advance parole? Okay, so advance parole is permission to leave the United States and to legally re-enter. Since DACA doesn't give you legal status, you can't travel without advance parole. If you leave the United States, you forfeit DACA unless you have advance parole. And then you can't return to the US for at least 10 years. Because chances are you've been here in the US for more than 1 year without permission before you got DACA. If you don't have DACA now, well, then you've been here 13 years. Think about it. You know, the likelihood that you were here for more than 1 year after 18 without permission is pretty darn high at this point in 2020. A little less in 2018, but 2020, it's pretty clear. Now, here's why. DACA plus advance parole, which means legal entry into the United States, plus an immediate relative, which is a spouse who's a U.S. citizen or a child over 21 who's a U.S. citizen, equals green card. So you can have DACA, that gives you work authorization, protection from deportation. You file for advance parole, which means it allows you to leave the U.S. and come back to the United States. You now have legal entry. If in the future you have an immediate relative, let's say your spouse is a green card holder, not yet a U.S. citizen, or your child is 18, born in the U.S., not yet 21. Well, when the child's 21 or when your spouse becomes a U.S. citizen, you now have an immediate relative, family-based petition. In order to adjust status in the United States, you need a family relative like a spouse, and you need legal entry. DACA with advance parole can get you that legal entry. So it is an avenue to normalize your situation in the future, even if you don't qualify today. So today, you get to travel outside the US, and in the future, you might get a green card. That's not a bad deal. Now, how do you get advance parole under DACA? It's more limited than, say, for example, TPS. Now, it is the same process. You have to file Form I-131. For listeners of our YouTube channel, you might recognize this because I've talked about this before. It is the same form as parole in place, which is, think of it as military deferred action. DACA is deferred action for childhood arrival. So deferred action is protection from deportation and work authorization for a certain group of people. Children that arrived underage and meet certain criteria, like DACA, is one way. Those that have immediate relatives, like children in the military, is another way. There were others, but Trump has steadily tried to eliminate all of them. Now, unlike military action or TPS, you need a really good reason to travel outside of the US. Specifically, it needs to be for one of three reasons: humanitarian, education, or work-related issues. Humanitarian. We've been successful applying to visit for sick family relatives or special occasions like a wedding. You need to document it. So if someone is sick, you will need a doctor's note and medical records. For example, let's say it's your grandparents or your parents were diagnosed with cancer. It also helps having a letter from your sick relative explaining what your visit means to them. We need to give a compelling story. You can't just say, I want to visit my family, I haven't seen them in 15 years. Honestly, that likely won't get you approved. It might have worked 4 years ago under Obama. Even then, I wouldn't have recommended it. Under Trump, absolutely not. If you are attending a special occasion, you need to prove it. So if it's for a wedding, submit the wedding invitation and a letter from your relative saying what having you there will mean to him or her. Make it personal. Humanize. You know, I'm a storyteller. At the end of the day, that's what I do. I learn my client's story and I present it in an avenue that immigration looks at and says, I get it now. Thank you. That's what you need to do. So, number one, humanitarian reasons, visiting a sick relative, or attending a special occasion like a wedding. Second is education. So we've been successful for a DACA student that wanted to study abroad. She was in college here. She wanted to go to Mexico to take certain course-specific subjects. It was a summer study abroad program. So we submitted evidence of the program that she was enrolled in, that she was accepted to that program, and that it was already paid for. Also, what her travel arrangements were. She asked to stay an extra 2 weeks and visit family. It was approved. So what's the education related scenario? What does it cost? Information about the program. What are your travel arrangements? What are you planning to do? How are you planning to do it? How does this benefit your career or your education? So you need to document all that. You can't just say it. Prove it. So provide information from the college for the study abroad program, as an example. Get a letter from the head of the program accepting you, describing what it is. Again, the more information you have, the less it depends on what you say and what you know, the better off you are. Third, work-related reasons. So it has to be related to your work, your job, or your career. It could be a trade conference that you're attending, or you could be attending a seminar for work-related education. Let's say you're a mechanic and you work specifically on, Mercedes vehicles, high-end Mercedes vehicles. So you're going to a Mercedes certification course in Germany, and they're going to show you the certain tips and tricks or whatever that you need in order to be able to be better at your job. Or let's say you are a doctor or an attorney. I understand with just DACA that might be a little bit harder. There aren't that many, but there are doctors who have DACA, not many, and there are 1 or 2 attorneys who have DACA. Right? So let's say you're attending I'm part of AILA, American Immigration Lawyers Association. Often they have seminars outside the United States. Let's say it's about DACA and Advance Parole. And let's say they're having it in, Mexico. Now, obviously, that isn't happening right now given COVID and everything that's going on. But again, this is an example. So I sign up for that program. I show that I paid for it. I provide details of what the program is. I book my hotel reservation. I book my flight arrangement. When I'm going there, when I'm coming back. Maybe I want to stay a couple of days. So it's a Monday through Friday program, and I'm going to stay Saturday and Sunday and fly back on Monday, as an example, right? So I provide that documentation, and since I am an attorney and that is related to my career, my work, and my job, that likely will get approved. So you should also include why this seminar is important for your job or your career. The fact is, this won't be easy. We know this administration does not want to grant your advance parole, but until they properly wind down DACA program, they will have no choice but to approve your application. That also means you have to go above and beyond what you had to submit just 3 years ago under Obama. If you don't go into details and corroborate everything you say, you will be denied. Don't take that chance. The cost for advance parole really depends on how complex it is. For us, it varies between $2,000 to $3,000. Do we need to prepare affidavits? Do we need to translate documents? What supporting documents do we have? Under this administration, we can't take any chances. Now, it's likely going to take 2 to 4 months from filing to approval. But we really don't know yet. The more time you give us, the better your chances are. We've had clients that it took months. Since no one's filed it for 3 years, we don't really know what immigration is going to be doing. We can just guess based on our experience. Now, given the COVID situation, immigration is talking about furloughing employees. If what that means is they lay them off. Like that might have happened to you during the past 3 months or so. Maybe you were in a restaurant and the restaurant closed, either temporarily or permanently. So they laid you off. Well, this is the same thing. Immigration is saying, listen, we don't have as many people applying, so we don't need as many offices, we don't need as many employees. So we're gonna let you go temporarily until business picks up, and then we'll bring you back. Now, if there's less officers to adjudicate petitions, guess what? That means greater delays. Everyone with DACA should apply for advance parole, except the following. If you have previously been deported, you could have a problem re-entering the U.S. The government could say you self-deported. The fact is, if you've been deported, your advance parole should probably be denied. If it is approved, however, and you leave in reliance on that approval, you should be allowed to re-enter, and some courts have said so. However, that will be an expensive litigation, all while you're outside the United States. So before you do that, make sure you understand what you're getting into. That's one scenario. You've already been deported. If you have committed a serious misdemeanor or a felony or 3 or more misdemeanors, let's say you filed for DACA, you then were convicted of certain crimes, you're now applying for advance parole. So probably you should not. If you've been arrested for any reason, you should consult with an immigration attorney who's skilled in criminal defense before filing anything. You don't want to apply for advance parole and find yourself losing DACA and in removal proceedings because you didn't know what you were getting into. So forewarned is forearmed. And lastly, if you entered legally to the US and you can prove it, meaning you had a passport, you had a visa, it was in your name, you presented it, maybe you were a child, your parents presented it, and you have proof that you entered legally, you don't need advance parole because you already qualified to adjust your status when you get an immediate relative. Now, maybe you want to travel and that's okay. Maybe you have one of those 3 reasons, that's fine. But if you're applying for advance parole to be able to get a green card in the future, if you have legal status, you don't need it because advance parole is not giving you anything you don't already have. So thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this video, please put your comments below. Also, share it with any friends or family who you think might want to know about DACA. Thank you.